Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. I'm Leslie Umberger. I'm the museum's curator of folk and self-taught art. And before we get to our program tonight, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the artist that we are here to talk about and the remarkable body of work that he made and how our museum came to be its steward. The artist that we call Mingering Mike he has looked back at the time when he began this body of work in 1968 and called himself a teenage ghetto daydreamer. He was 17 at the time, and he was born and raised in DC when he began to write down the songs that were popping into his head. And within a year, he began crafting and painting the cardboard records and album covers that he imagined that these songs to belong. And he even recorded many, many of them on tape eventually, too. Not long after the first records were fabricated, he invented the soul superstar stage name Mingering Mike, which would become his lasting alter ego. By the time Mingering Mike sent his fantasy project aside in 1977, he had made well over 100 records of varying length, size, production label, album type, and he made most of the work after 1970. Mike, I think, would self-identify as an extreme pacifist, and he had dodged the draft in Vietnam and made most of his work while lying low at home in the ensuing years. President Carter pardoned all those who had evaded the draft in one way or another in January of 1977, which is when Mingering Mike retired from stardom and actually got a paying job. Eventually, Mike put the artifacts of his musical career in storage, and it stayed there for over 25 years until a turn of events resulted in his loss of those possessions. They were auctioned off, and he was heartbroken to think that he had lost his treasure. Enter Dori Hadar, a man of numerous talents and interests, foremost to this story, a lover of soul and R&B music. Hadar found himself dark and early one cold morning digging through crates of old records at a flea market, and he happened upon the lion's share of Mike's trove. He found records, tapes, lyric, liner notes, everything. He was there to buy professional recordings, and he was at first rather unsure of what to do with this curious but highly intriguing body of handmade work. I will let Dori tell this story in more depth. But suffice to say that in the end, with some help, he gathered up and acquired it all. Happening also to be a private investigator, he set about finding the mysterious artist himself, which he did. And there may be some apparent irony in the fact that Mike, with his dreams of fame and celebrity, is actually quite shy of the spotlight, but this was, after all, an introvert's dream, and still today, Mike prefers to let his fabricated persona get all of the fame and glory, and in public, he goes incognito. Dori and Mike became a great team. They organized a book, an exhibition, and sought gallery representation. They found a fantastic ally in George Hemphill of Hemphill Gallery, who believed that what they had was indeed a strong and important body of African-American vernacular art, one that encapsulated not just one kid's dream, but something much more comprehensive and historic. One of the American Art Museum's commissioners, Mike Wilkins, saw an article and some image about Mingering Mike's work, and he was fascinated with it. He contacted Hemphill Gallery and discovered that the albums were not being sold individually, that the collective hope was that the entire body of work would go to a museum where it could be preserved both physically and as a comprehensive chronicle. Mike Wilkins immediately saw a connection to one of the American Art Museum's iconic works, The Throne of the Third Heaven by James Hampton. And he knew that this museum actively seeks to present alternate and underrepresented narratives in American art, and that Mingering Mike's art fit this mandate. In the end, Mike Wilkins made it possible for the Smithsonian to acquire this amazing body of work, and tonight we want to extend a very special thank you to him. Our exhibition, Mingering Mike's Supersonics Greatest Hits, is powered by PepGo. We are grateful to PepGo's Debbie Jarvis, who is Vice President of Corporate Citizenship and Social Responsibility, and to Dave Velasquez, Executive Vice President of PepGo Holdings, for being so supportive of this project and helping make it possible. And the exhibition is also supported in part by the museum's Herbert Wade Hemphill Jr. American Folk Art Fund. Joining me tonight on stage is Mingering Mike himself. Wave, in case anybody isn't sure which one you are. Dori Hadar. I have Carroll Hynson Jr. and Tom Patterson with me as well. Carroll Hynson was a #1 radio DJ in the Baltimore, Washington area from 1965 to 1978. He was the first African American to produce and host a national and local talent show on NBC4, and he produced hit albums for several artists, including the Washington female trio The Fuzz, Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers, and the Dynamic Corvettes. Today, he is still well known as a TV host and radio announcer, and he can be heard every Saturday on 96.3 WHUR's popular and top-rated show, The Time Tunnel. And Tom Patterson is an independent writer and curator who started to focus on the work of self-taught artists in the 1980s when he signed on for the Jargon Society's Southern Visionary Folk Art Project, a major effort based in North Carolina aimed at documenting non-mainstream art in several southern states. Patterson was a co-curator of the groundbreaking show in 1985 called Southern Visionary Folk Artists, which introduced this work to many contemporary art audiences. He's the author of several noteworthy books, including Saint Ohm in the Land of Pasaquan and Howard Finster, Stranger from Another World. Tom is a frequent art magazine writer and reviewer, including a 2006 article for Folk Art magazine on Mingering Mike. So, you've already joined me in welcoming these guys, and we'll get started. So I think that the best place to start is to just have maybe Dori, you tell us a little bit about, that fated day when you stumbled upon this material.
Sure. So Leslie mentioned that I work as a criminal investigator, and on this night, which was in early January 2004, I was at the D.C. jail. Can't recall exactly why. I'd be there to speak to a client or interview someone, but it was an unusual night because I didn't get out of there until about 4:30 in the morning. And it just so happened that the flea market that I would typically go to is located about 300 yards away from the D.C. jail. And I decided, well, I could go home and come back, or I could just sit here and wait for the trucks to show up. And so I did that. It was a freezing morning, so I sat in my little Honda with the engine running, and the truck pulled up. I got there before anybody else, and one truck in particular just started unloading crate after crate after crate of records, which was the dream. And so I went through this collection. I found all this fantastic music, soul, jazz, rock, soundtrack, all types of stuff, and I amassed a huge pile of these records that I was going to buy, and then I got to one particular crate, which made absolutely no sense whatsoever. What was inside that crate were approximately 40 hand-painted soul albums with hand-drawn lyrics and liner notes with fantastic album titles, such as 3 Steps from the Altar, the soundtrack from Brother of the Dragon, and Mingering Mike Supersonic Greatest Hit. And so I spent some time there just going through them, trying to understand what this was. My first thought was that it was a collection of artwork from a class, maybe an art class, and that each student made their own album cover, and that's what this was. But as I went through them, it became clear that that was not the case, because each of these albums had the name Mingering Mike on them somewhere. And I had never heard of Mingering Mike or had I heard of the word mingering. So after all the other record collectors showed up and, we're going through all the boxes, I was asking them, you know who Mingering Mike is? What does mingering mean? And nobody really cared. They're just, So I just added them to the pile, bought them for $2 each and took them home. And over the course of a week, I just digested them. I just read them over and over again and tried to come to some sort of understanding as to what they were. But it was very clear that it was something very special and something very intensely personal. So I went onto a website called Soulstrut, which is a forum for record collectors. And in fact, the owner of that website is here from Pennsylvania tonight, Rick Smith. I don't know where you are. All right. So this site, hundreds and hundreds of record collectors were on this site. And so I posted, who is Mingering Mike? And I posted the pictures. And the response was just phenomenal. Within an hour, 20 responses. This is amazing. This is folk art. This belongs in the Smithsonian. Just everybody was so drawn to it, and immediately everyone fell in love with Mingering Mike. It's just what happened. And so what happened was my friend Frank Baylott chimed in. Frank is here also from South Carolina. He came up from, I don't know where he is either. There he is. He said that he had seen some cardboard 45 maybe a week later. And so we got together and we said, let's go to the vendor and see if he has anything left. And so we went into this storage unit, which was full of all kinds of furniture, clothing, and everything. And we found more. We found a Ziploc bag that contained about 65 paper record labels that had not yet been placed onto records, and there were over 35 different record label companies, all with their own logo. So it was just absolutely mind-blowing. And we picked up some letters and paperwork. Nothing was addressed to Mingering Mike. But so we managed to figure out who might be some relatives, knocked on some doors, and finally one guy opened the door and we said, "Hi, we're trying to reach a man named Mingering Mike. Do you know a Mingering Mike?" And he just laughed and said, "Oh, I haven't heard that name in a long, long time." And he said, "Give me your phone number. I'll give it to him." Okay, great, thanks. Didn't hear anything. So then, ultimately, I believe I came up with an address. And we knocked on my store. And a man peered out with the crack of the door, and we told him, we found these albums, they're beautiful, we'd like to talk to you about them. And he said, "Oh, my babies," is how he referred to them. And but he was very suspicious of us, like he didn't know what we wanted from him. So we were supposed to meet once again, but it didn't work out. And so going back and forth, ultimately, Mike agreed to meet with Frank and myself and his cousin, Warren, at a Denny's a few blocks away. And that must have been the most uncomfortable, awkward conversation I've ever had in my life. Because basically we had printed out comments that people had made about the record, like praising them. And we were telling them, look, people just love your stuff, and we'd love to learn more about them, and we posted them all over the internet. And I remember Mike and his cousin just looking at each other. And so we parted, and I think he digested what we had been talking about, and I think he just grew warm to the idea that people were responding to his work that no one had ever seen before. And we became friends. And over time, we just told me a story, and we hung out and listened to music, and pretty much that was the beginning of how it went. And the New York Times sent a reporter, and from there it was just, wow. It was just.
Did you think you were ever going to see them again?
Never did. Really thought they were gone forever.
And what did you think when they came back into your life?
Like he said, my baby. First of all, I'd like to say that after the interview, to the left, I would be performing colonoscopies. If anybody wants.
Noted.
That's classic. That's classic.
Okay. Do you want to talk about how you got started? You started drawing as a kid, right?
Right. Doing, from the age like 6 all the way up. And by the time I got to be a teenager, then I used to think of titles, but couldn't think of the words to go with the title. So then I just, like a year later or so, I started thinking of songs and started writing them down. And that wasn't enough for me. So then I went to what used to be called People's Drugstore, got all the tools and things I thought I might need, and I just started drawing. And I liked what I drew, and I used to show it to the family until they got tired of it. It'd be something new, and I still want to show it to them. And like that, but I kept on. I kept going. And like some of the words, they would look at the words and they would criticize. Say, well, I think you should place this with this. And I said, oh, okay, I'll do this. And then later on, I thought, wait a minute, this is mine. Let me write it the way I want to write it. So then I just stuck to my guns or whatever pattern or writing that I had. And it was just fantastic. Some of the stuff I look back at that time, I would say to myself, wow, who wrote this? I said, oh, that's right, I did. And it was just a wonderful experience being like in your own world and creating things. Because I used to say to myself, I'll have enough material if I ever get to that place where I can show people. And that's how that is.
So who were you listening to at that time? What kind of music was feeding into your own, what kind of music were you listening to for pleasure and for fun?
Anywhere from Barbra Streisand, Frank Sinatra, and Sammy Davis, and James Brown, of course, and Fats Domino, everybody. Even Carroll Hynson. I was listening to his song.
Actually, your career kind of parallels mine. I started in radio in Washington, D.C. in 1965, and that's when your career started. So we kind of matched each other, and I didn't know that you were there. And it's so phenomenal.
I was out there.
Yeah, I know.
He definitely knew you were there.
Now I know where you are.
You were there.
Yeah, but you admired a lot of people that I admired, like James Brown and like Wilson Pickett and many people. I mean, the creativity. How did you mirror all of these people like Curtis Mayfield? And how did you just come up with that concept? I'm gonna put out a song like this person or like that person.
Because I admired the music that they was putting out, and I was saying, I wonder if I could do it. The same way with going to movies, and the soundtrack might not be all that good, and I said, well, I might can do a little bit better than that. And then I'll do my own soundtrack, Bubba the Dragon, which you can find on the internet anywhere.
It was very interesting to me, though. I mean, some of these songs were very relevant with the eras that you were kind of writing them in. Back when the civil rights movement and so forth and so on. Everything from sex to similarity, you kind of got involved in. So
Thanks to Curtis Mayfield.
Yeah. And you got. Oh, and he can sing too. How about that?
Obviously, you haven't seen my
No.
online stuff.
Yeah, but you know, the songs have substance, and I've just my secretary read the biography, and she said, you know what, I want the book. That's why I don't have my book here tonight, because she took it and said, I want to read that book, and she loves you. And so do some of these people here tonight, and I just want to say, oh yes they do, yes they do.
It's gonna be okay.
You mentioned the Howard Theater. I'm curious. Did you ever did you get backstage, as I recall, at the Howard Theater?
Not backstage, but I used to get in free because my brothers used to be ushers. So I seen a lot of shows.
That was the place, because, you know, I said when I was a young man that my parents used to come to Washington to shop, and one of the things I wanted to do, I said, one day I'm going to be on that stage. And you were almost in the same kind of feeling. You wanted to be a part of what you saw at the Howard Theater. You wanted to bring your entertainers into the Howard Theater, you know.
Right.
How far did you think this would go in your concept?
Just to my little foot locker.
And finish that, let me go to another one.
That's how it was. I just knew that it wouldn't go anywhere, so we did.
So you brought at a certain point you brought your cousin into the operation. Tell us about the Big D. I want to know more about the Big D. You appear on a number of your records you appear as a duo.
Yeah.
And on recording.
Right.
And on the, yeah.
Well, I didn't know that he could sing and that he was falsetto, and so one day he was talking, and I was talking about songs that I've written, and he said, "Well, I write too," and I sing. I said, "Oh yeah, we ought to get together." So we got a tape recorder, went in the bathroom for acoustics, just started what they call now. What they call it, the free, we used to call like just freestyle.
Freestyle, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And used to edit our own stuff there, and came up pretty good. Like 3 footsteps.
When do you feel that you did you ever lose interest in your dream? Did you ever feel that, well, I've done this long enough? Did you ever think that this would stop, and when did that happen for you?
I lost interest in my dream when it happened to be mothballs in my pocket and everything. And I had put the mothballs in it, so the moths in your pocket. Because if I had money, then I would be able to have it in it. And it was where I came to the realization that, hey, I need a job to support this. And so I just started doing the job.
Yeah, my curiosity also tells me that your friends probably said, well, why is he doing this? I mean, what did all the people that were around you, your family, your friends, I mean, how did they feel? How did they approach you and say, you know, what are you doing?
Well, most of the time it was just my family, because the friends never knew. Yeah, I kept it that way.
Why did you do that? I mean, you didn't want to expose what you were doing. You thought it was just something that you had in your heart?
Something that was just for me, right in the heart.
Didn't you hang them in your room all around you?
Yeah, I used to come in from work and all tired and everything, and I come into work, have it hanging up, and it looked so real to me. I said, wow, who put this? Oh.
Was me.
Yeah.
But so you made these tapes. You, sorry, I am here, still here.
Oh.
You made these tapes, but you never played them for anybody.
Right.
You and your Big D were the only people to hear them?
Right, and then all of a sudden I was looking in the yellow pages, and I happened to see a place that U.S. recording in South Carolina. So I took some of the tapes down there and had them put on the after tape. And then I was immortal in my family then. Everybody loved it. What's your new single? I'll let you know.
That somehow validated them for you that you had actual records,
Right,
and that made it more real for them.
right.
Did they think you should go farther?
No, they wasn't thinking anything because they were about tired of me after that.
Did you ever
It
think
was
about
me that
trying to
kept
go
the
farther
dream
with
on.
it?
Yeah, yeah. It was a place called Arrest Records down on 14th and Cave. And I went down there with reel to reel, and me and my cousin, and it was like muffled. We were just doing like this and everything. And the people that was listening said, "Wait, we can't hear anything. It's kind of muffled." Well, okay.
Were you wearing one of those surgical masks at the time? Were you wearing a surgical mask? Is that what? Sorry.
No, I wasn't.
So can you just describe how you felt when Frank and I told you that the world is seeing all of this?
Well, I was impressed by what you said. I think you said it was like 18,000 hits or something like that.
8,000.
And you said that the site had broke down because of that.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of impressive. I said, hey, they got something going here.
So what was your feeling? Like, this stuff hadn't been, these albums were not a part of your everyday life. These are from years back, and all of a sudden, there's like thousands of people looking at this stuff and loving it. I mean, was it emotional for you?
Yeah, but in the end, it was like, I would imagine it's like, the only way I can describe it is like if there was a true Rip Van Winkle, and he created a lot of body work, and he went to sleep, and then 40 years later he wake up and everybody's admiring his work. So how would you feel? You feel like your life has started all over again.
And the interesting thing about this, your whole concept was a business concept.
Right.
You had a company, you had artists that you wanted to go out and play in different venues. You wanted to sell records and what have you. Did you ever think that maybe one day this is going to turn into a money maker? Did you ever feel that way? Or you just say this is just a dream that I have and I'm just going to enjoy it with it myself? Or did you ever think it would actually make money? Because you had a pretty good business then.
Yes, it did. It's amazing how you used to be a DJ.
Oh.
Well, the dream was about like this, and about putting it towards effort was about like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the dream kept getting bigger and bigger, and the effort kept getting smaller and smaller because of finance. And but it was nice doing this stuff. The only bad part about it is I had 4,000 songs written, and 2,000 was in the stores that got lost along with the 4,000 vinyl albums I had. And then the other 2,000 had over relatives where it was waterlogged, so all those songs are just gone. So I had other songs that I've written that I had close to hand. But 4,000 songs are just...
So these were the song lyrics written down? These were just the song lyrics, or did you lose more copies of the record album?
It was about neck to neck, 4,000 songs and 4,000 vinyls.
So what we're seeing here is a tip of the iceberg, kind of? There were a lot more of them?
Well, there was a lot of other cardboard albums that I've done that kind of like gotten away from me. But I redid one. It was called Getting in the Christmas Spirit with Mike in. And I liked the way it came out because I had a little tiny cassette that I took the album and went to Kinkley's and made it to a little cassette side. So that was the only thing that was saved because the album itself, I don't know where it was at. So a couple of years back, I redid we did the album and sent it to one of the curators in New York. And so she just told me to the album cover for her.
Carroll, I'm guessing that Mike was not the only kid in DC who, was hugely influenced by what was going on in DC music at that time. Can you talk a little bit about that whole period and how that kind of really transformed everything?
Yes, it did. We started in 1965, like I said, almost paralleling what he did. And when we came to town, it was the first time that black disc jockeys had really started to sound like top 40 disc jockeys. We imported, Sondland Broadcasting, kind of brought in guys from all over the country that were very talented, like Nighthawk, Rudy Reynolds, the Tall Pan Texan, all the guys you remember, Jerry Bolden, and what have you. And just
Jolly Jerry B from Union 3.
See? and kind of brought them in, and within 2 weeks, WOL became #1 in the city. Kind of shocked everyone. Yeah. Where did this station come from? But these guys that all sound like top 40 guys. When we were talking in the record break, we were talking in, so when we hit the voice part of the song, would be there. The production was tight, and it was great. And I would say that WOL enjoyed a great prosperity here in this town for a solid 10 to 15 years. And it really was great. But the interesting part is that here's a guy that was doing an imaginary situation with records and producing and doing things at the same time we were doing things, almost at the same time. And ironically, I left radio in 1977, and that's when you kind of stopped. Yeah, and so we have a connection here. And I'm wondering, have any of these songs? Have you ever thought about really putting any of these songs, actually producing any of these songs? Because some of them have a lot of merit. A lot of them have a lot of merit. Have you ever thought about putting them on? Really producing them and going into a studio and making this magic happen?
Well, artists, a group called Talking Heads.
Yeah.
An artist, David Blaine. Well, he wanted to do some of the songs, but he wanted complete control. Not happening. So that never would get off the ground. But just made going to the studio pretty simple. So long time overdue, but I'm ready.
Time is definitely time.
Oh yeah.
And there'll be hits. There'll be hits because not only now you have a background of this exhibit and wonderful, wonderful things that you've done, the displays that everybody in the whole country is going to see eventually, and I think it's fantastic. And I think he gets a big round of applause. Thank you.
So it was an exciting time in music. I was in a rock band at this time. You were about the same age. I think you were a couple of years older. So I was in a rock band. I was listening to a lot of the same music. And
you lived in Georgia.
I was in Georgia, exactly. A small town,
yeah.
Exactly. But the world was getting smaller at that time in a lot of ways. But it was a time when there was a big change in music. Suddenly music developed a social context. It had all been love songs and Moon, June, Spoon, kind of Tin Pan Alley type lyrics. And in the 60s, in the Vietnam Civil Rights era, suddenly all this politics was reflected in the music. And you were definitely tuned into all of that because you were doing the same thing that was reflected in what you were doing. And so you obviously had very strong feelings about some of these political issues. But talk a little bit more about I'd like to hear more about your feelings about the Vietnam War. And you had at least one album that was kind of all about that subject. And it ended up being such a troubling issue in your own life. How did you sort all that out? What were you thinking about all that at the time?
Well, it was a very bad time for the whole nation, and I, just like any other person imagines and everything, they can imagine a better time and how we can get out of this situation. So the way I got out of it was writing, and some of my lyrics was pretty good, if I say so myself. And so it was very interesting to see how a person could deal with something and don't have the whole country upset because of what you said. Where you can just say something just like generalized where everyone can understand it, where it be less retaliation. So it was just a hard time to try to get over with it and to deal with it. We made it through.
Well, we did. So how did it affect you when Carter pardoned the draft today?
At first I didn't want to go because I thought it was just a scheme.
You mean you didn't think I'm not talking about during the war, but I'm talking about after the war when Carter came in and then he pardoned everybody.
That's what I thought. I thought
you
it was
didn't
just
think
a
that
change.
was real?
Yeah. So I held off for maybe like 5, 6 months. And then I said, well, I'll give it a try. I signed up for it.
And did it affect the way you lived your life at that point?
Yeah, because well, after you went through, then you're supposed to have do the community service, and I did that. And then I just resumed just working and not doing any artistry anymore.
Yeah, the job took over your life.
Right.
Problem. Make a living.
Did you think the work was political when you were making it?
Oh yeah. Because wasn't too many people out there saying anything like that. I believe Curtis Mayfield was about the first one that started saying stuff like that. Keep on pushing. We're a winner. And then Marvin Gaye came along. It just seemed like everybody stopped paying attention after Marvin Gaye, who was from D.C.
I like your album, the United States Puppet Force.
Oh yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
You only know what they tell you.
You only know what they tell you, and it's got a soldier as a puppet.
Right.
Uncle Sam kind of manipulating him, and that's, an album cover that just like would not have appeared on an album cover right there.
Oh, it was very controversial.
Yeah.
Statement to make.
Yeah. The only equivalent to that I could think of is Funkadelic America Equals Beyond.
Oh yeah.
Do you think that your creative juices will come back? They're still there. They'll never leave you. But do you think that you will do anything in the future?
Yeah, I really do think I will be able to do something because
Similar to what you did.
Well, yeah, similar to because of the truth. I'm about sick of seeing these baggy pants people. Because when I was in Amsterdam, it was a white fellow, and he had his pants baggy. I said, well, come on, man. Amsterdam. You see, and now they just about showing their butt.
And underpants.
Yeah. They don't know they can get a cold one.
But if you had to kind of rejuvenate and start to do you think you would continue along the same line? Because your imagination is phenomenal. I mean, do you think you continue this creativity?
I think
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I believe I could. It's just the point that I would just have to start all over from scratch to see what works. Because I don't think it'll just pop right out and everything be right. I would just have to mill over things to make sure everything's right. Everything like that to be certain. This is that exactly what I was.
You have been making.
Oh yes, yes I have.
What have you been making? Sure.
None of your damn business.
That's the artist's prerogative.
Okay.
That's the artist's prerogative.
Yeah. And a great artist did that. Yeah.
Well, I recently did a album cover for Peter Buck, REM,
Yeah, that's good, Bob.
and so we're gonna see what happens with that.
Great. I'm not at all surprised that he's a fan. He's a record collecting tool.
Getting back to the recording, and I'm intrigued by that. Putting these records out and CDs and what have you now. Some of the things that do you feel that you would be involved in the production of that? You have to be because it's your magic.
Mm-hmm.
So are you going to be comfortable with that? I really hope you do. I really do. I think it will be something that we can hold on to. I think it'll be very creative. But are you anxious to do that? Or do you really, really, really want to do it?
Yes, I do, but on the inside, it's the inside that have to come out.
Yeah.
See, because during the normal day, you're just doing the regular routine that you have to do to survive.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you get that opportunity, then where you don't have to worry about that survival part, then you need knowledge to come back.
If you were to get in the studio, you know exactly how you're talking. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Has the tapes been digitized?
There are a lot of tapes. A lot of them.
A lot.
A lot of them are very delicate.
Yeah, I was saying.
They have to be baked very carefully, but there are piles. A lot that hasn't been heard.
But we've started getting some of them up on the website.
Yeah, there are new ones.
Great.
So, and Mike, do you think that if you were going to describe yourself as a visual artist or a musician, which comes first?
Well, I used to call myself Long Road to Silent Observer. So I observe different situations and wonder how one can deal with that situation. So, and a visionary, I guess.
But the music came first.
I'm not finished yet.
Oh.
Okay. Wait a minute. Okay.
But the music came first, right?
Right.
You weren't making any album covers or anything. And wasn't it, you had written so many songs that you said, please, I need to make albums for these songs? That's how it came about.
Mm-hmm.
And now your paintings are hanging in the Smithsonian.
Really? Is this what it's all about?